Hi, everybody. Welcome to Missed Connection. My name is Claire Rigsby, and I'm in Coho Theater right now in Portland, Oregon, with the amazing Eric Little on the piano. I'm really, really, really thankful that you guys are here, even though all of the seats are empty. I know you're out there, and it really means a lot to me that you would come and experience this with us. Wow, my heart is pounding so fast. If you haven't gone outside to see the moon right now, I really suggest that you go do that and then come back and watch this, or bring your computer outside and watch it underneath the moon because it's beautiful. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we're going to do tonight. We put a call out to people for them to send in voice memos around 3 different prompts: missed connection, being alone, and finding joy. These are 3 topics or things that I've just been thinking a lot about during the pandemic, and honestly just in general. And we had you all, maybe some of you who are watching sent some in, we had you send them to Coho. And that's because I haven't heard them yet, and Eric hasn't heard them yet either. And so what's going to happen is that we're going to play these voice memos, and as we listen to your thoughts and stories and rants and rambles, I'm going to put it into movement, and Eric is going to put it into music for the very first time. Think of it sort of as like an audio-visual musical podcast that you can just sort of relax and listen to. I'm also really trying to think about how can you create intimacy? How can you create intimacy in a platform like this through a screen? I'm in this theater with 4 other people who are amazing, but I want to feel connected to you guys. And I've just given a lot of thought into how do you make an intimate space where people are all over the world, maybe. And so I'm going to ask that as you watch and listen, you think about creating intimacy and intimacy in general. And I would love if you would write 7-word stories about creating intimacy. They could be stories that happened to you. They could be thoughts about creating intimacy. There's really no wrong answer, just 7 words, and put them in the chat. And I will be reading them between the different movements of this piece. So I'm really hoping that we will all have a moment where we can relate with someone, where we can feel connected to someone maybe we don't even know. And I'm just so thankful that you're all here. And I'm so, so, so thankful to all of you who sent in voice memos. So let's get started, you guys. Missed Connection.
I used to read the missed connections section of Craigslist. Not obsessively, but I read it most days, especially when I was out doing something. And by doing something, I mean like going to the grocery store or walking down the street around other people. And I've always been really shy, and I would hardly interact with anyone. But I was so desperate for validation that I was hoping some stranger had seen me and seen something beautiful in me, something that I couldn't see.
My sophomore year of college, I done goofed real hard, as we all do, and I got too drunk. There was a lot of reasons why. It was very sad and unfortunate, because lots of factors lined up for me to just get too drunk, and it was my fault. But a little part of you always wants to be like, it wasn't my fault. But the last thing I remember is turning around and pouring orange juice and Coke and vodka and whiskey and just Sprite into a cup, and then nothing. But I have been told on this night that I was carried home by a football player who I have never met, because my friend could not get me home. Well, so the sweet football player offered to carry me home and took me to my dorm, and of course I don't remember it, and I heard he was so kind and so sweet and so considerate, and I've still never met this guy. And I think about it every once in a while that this person probably saw me around campus and remembered me. And I never got to thank him for taking care of a stranger really sweetly, who was kind of at a very low point. So I think about that every once in a while.
I think that I think I've had a couple missed connections in my life. But I remember, I can think of like 4. But the one I guess I will talk about is that before I went to college, I had a friend, and his name was Jack. And he was so handsome, and he drove like a 1960s green Beetle, and like listened to Billy Joel, and like had the glasses, and like he was so handsome. And just like an old soul. But anyways, and we started hanging out the summer before I went to school, because I worked at a coffee shop. It was very cliche, but he would come in every single fucking day and to the coffee shop and like get black coffee, and we would just sit, and he would like sit with me for my whole fucking shift, and then we would hang out after work, blah blah blah. And then one day he was like, let's go to the movies. And I was like, oh my god, okay. And I was freaking out on the inside, because I had never been on a date before, and I guess I never have been on a date, because unbeknownst to me, this was not a date. But he like bought my ticket, and like I was like, oh my god. And we went and saw Finding Dory, and I love animated movies. And he like was like, we were talking, and I was like, it's so weird, like I just can't imagine like holding hands at the movies, just like this such a cute thing. And he was like, well, come here. And he just like grabbed my hand and like held my hand through the whole movie. And then after that, every week we started to go see a new animated movie. Oh my god, this was such a good time in my life. And we would go see a new animated movie, and he would like always buy my ticket, and then I would like buy the popcorn, whatever. I don't know, it was just so sweet. And then every single time he would hold my hand at the movies, and like I don't know how old I was, 18, and that was like enough for me. I was like, I don't need any more shenanigans at the movie. But and I was like, I feel so weird. I've never had anyone express interest in me like this before. And then he came into the coffee shop one day, and he was like, I want to show you this picture of this girl named Maddie, who I've been talking to, and I think we're going to start dating. And literally my little 18-year-old heart, like just like a tectonic plate, like cracked in half. And I was just like, oh yeah, let me see a picture of her. Like, oh my god, she's so cute. You should definitely go for it, blah, 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 blah. And I remember being so just like, confused. And I had reached out to him later, and like we're still friends, like good friends to this day. And I was like, I feel like you liked me and I don't understand. And he was like, I did. And I know that you liked me too. And that's kind of all we said about it. But then I moved to Portland. And then he came to Portland, not to see me. His brother lives here too, but we like met up in Portland. I don't know. All that to say, that I think is like one of the biggest missed connections in my life. Because if I hadn't been moving, I think that it would have worked out. And I feel really grateful for like the connection we did have, because it was really genuine and kind, and I am always looking for kindness. But I sometimes I still think about, not that often though, because I'm happy that we're friends, but I'm like, I wonder what would have happened if I didn't move, and I would never not move for a man, but like that's kind of, as of right now, one of the great missed connections of my little life.
I found joy in getting lost in places I don't know, as much as I found it in reconnecting with places that shaped who I am. And now, in a time of forced solitude, I find joy in revisiting these memories as if time with you was but a dream, a missed connection from within my imagination. Can we put a price on our dreams? I say no. Memories of laughter, closeness, getting to know you or this place we called our playground, on days rainy and sunny alike. I find joy in recalling how your sheets felt on a cold day, or how the scent and the noise of a late night enveloped us. I find joy in remembering you and knowing that with time, we can make more of these memories.
Чувствую себя очень холодно в теле и потом в душе. И потом вообще забываю об этом, потому что я играю в снеге, танцую в снеге и трогаю его своими руками. Feeling cold in the sensory somatic body, then feeling cold in a relationship. The soul body, then forgetting it all through dancing in the snow and squishing it in your hands. Watching a documentary about art fraud, and simultaneously a visitor arrives asking about my imposter syndrome as an artist too late at night. Seeing a friend laughing in such a childlike, free way that you can imagine them as a toddler. Hugging a cherry blossom tree with your friend and walking away later to see someone else hugging the tree in a deep embrace, their puffy jacket somehow perfectly matching the blossoms, and grateful to see the moment, but even more grateful for the absence of a camera. Watching spots appear on my aging face, and on my good days, I call them sunspots. On my bad days, they are liver spots. Someday, I will accept them as time notches of my sunshine adventures, little smudges of memory tokens of nostalgia. Память — это подарок жизни, но даже если все не запомнишь, это все равно подарок жить.
I always think it's interesting that we think of misconnections in a way of missing a flight, for example, or this idea of FOMO, like fear of missing out, and that, you know, if we miss these things, we miss these connections, it somehow closes a door to something that we could have experienced, when in all actuality, it might be having that misconnection that leads you to have some other kind of experience that you wouldn't have had otherwise. Maybe missing that flight, missing that connection, allows you to meet somebody you never would have met otherwise. So, yeah, maybe making your connection is missing a connection somewhere else. Grab some water. That was so special. I love all the different ways that we think about misconnection. I mean, I think a lot of us, I don't know if this is a generational thing, but we think about Craigslist. But the more I think about it, the more I just realize, like, I've really missed connection. I've missed being connected to people. Living alone during a pandemic is weird. And even something like this with 4 other bodies is so special. Feeling connected as friends, but also through art is just, I don't know, Eric and I were talking about that right before we started. It feels so good. It feels so good. And it feels so good to hear what you all have to say about it. And now I really want to connect with those of you who are in the chat and read your 7-word stories. So here we go. I'm really excited for this. Broken RV, Reno Casino, disco shower, geese. Thanks, Kelly. We did miss that connection. Don't confuse a corset with a corsage. We've been waiting over a year. Yeah. Eye contact is too much for me. It's really, really intimate. When you touch your feet to mine. It's really lovely. Tokyo Dildo Bar, too late subway, lost. I love them so much, thank you. I was thinking, as I was moving, I was like, oh my God, I feel so connected. There's so much intimacy hearing these people's voices and the vulnerability, but getting these is a really fun, intimate connection too, and I feel connected to you even though I can't see you, but I know you're there. I really know you're there, so thank you. Our next section is being alone, and we received the most voice memos for this one, and that makes sense because I think all of us have experienced being alone in a completely different way than we ever have before. I know I was thinking about like the loneliest feeling for me during the pandemic, or one of them. One that surprised me is like, when you're on a Zoom meeting, like a fun Zoom meeting, not fun Zoom meeting, when you're hanging out with friends and it feels like you're connecting and you're laughing and you're at the Sunday hang and swang. And then you say goodbye to everyone and you hit end meeting. And it's this aloneness that I don't really know how to describe and that I hadn't ever felt before the pandemic. And I don't really know how to describe it. And it's so funny because all I want is just to turn next to somebody who's on the couch with me, even just to say like, that was so fun. But my cat will only listen to me so much. So yeah, I also know that I've had some really wonderful moments of being alone, and I'm sure there are some people out there who are like, oh my God, I would kill to live alone and not have to be around all my roommates or my partner or whatever all the time. So there's 2 sides to being alone, and I'm really excited to listen to what you have to say about it. So let's do it.
Thinking about being alone makes me feel about being alone and loneliness like they feel like 2 watercolors mixing with one another, the like strands pushing into one another, so that loneliness gets some of the benefits of how comfortable being alone feels. Loneliness now has a quality like a really warm, heavy blanket soft, comfortable, and like well worn and well known. And sometimes being alone has some of the qualities of loneliness, which feels like an ache and an echo.
The first time I was alone in a long, long while, I was left at home to do some kind of work on my computer. Some kind of time where there's not a mama, I need something, or someone on my leg. And Jacob took Vivian Pearl and Sylvia Swan to the beach, to the river beach on the Washington side at the Columbia. And they saw a flock of birds, of giant birds, bigger, way bigger than Canada geese. And they sounded different, Jacob's report, than a goose. And I wonder what they are all of the time. I think about how I was not with them when they saw this big flock, and I imagine that maybe they were swans, a giant flock of swans flying over my little swan. And I'm sure that I got something done that day. I finished a grant. I checked off something on my to-do list in a way that I wouldn't have been able to. But I feel sad that I missed out on that together time with my loves in my first moment of being alone. I miss this moment of magic that I imagine about all the time now. And I've been so lonely this year in this pandemic, even though there's almost always a body on my body, there is a kind of loneliness, and that I want my girls to have a sense of flock.
Being alone is relieving in a bunch of big ways. There's no perception coming at you from the outside. There's only perception internally or from the outside in. I feel like it's safe. Being alone feels more safe to me than it does being with others. It can be very lonely, but not as lonely as when you're lonely around people. When you're lonely by yourself, it's simple. When you're lonely around others, it's anguishing, anguified. I think I crave being alone a lot, and I question if that is healthy or not. But also when I'm alone, I feel a lack of inertia or motivation or freshness. I feel like a stagnation of sorts. And the stagnation is like comfortable, but also kind of sinister and, I don't know, consuming, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. I like it and don't like it at the same time.
I think that I'm going to move into my first solo apartment. Well, that's not true. I lived alone in New York City when I was 23, and it was not the time for me to live alone. But now it is. There's a certain rawness and intimacy with myself that I can't seem to achieve. It's almost like somatically my body doesn't feel safe to be that vulnerable with myself when there are people around. I feel this way in my creative process too, where I feel like I need to be so alone to make something, because the threat of like being seen or witnessed or heard in the vulnerable state of writing something or speaking to myself in the mirror or trying something on for the first time, it feels so tender. And there is also this quality of my being that comes out when I give myself permission to be that alone, where I love people, I love my friends, I love my roommates, but I often use them as somewhat of like fluff, hope they don't hear this, or distraction from asking the larger questions or focusing on my priorities. And I'm really looking forward to prioritizing that state of being that can only come about when I'm alone.
For me, loneliness during the pandemic has been looking for roommates and realizing that a lot of my friends have left Portland, and the people I might have reached out to don't live here anymore, and I don't have that kind of passive social network that you have when people are just hanging out and you're meeting friends of friends, and the world just seems a lot smaller in terms of people that I actually know. I don't have an easy time keeping up with people that I don't see on a day-to-day basis, and that's even when things are normal. So now it's been hard because I feel like I've offended people by my non-communication during this time. I think most people understand, but I know that I've let go of the burdens of relationships. And even now saying that they're burdens is tough, because it wasn't that the relationship was a burden, it was that I just don't have the energy. And I miss people. I'm a social person, but the idea of having to have the conversation of masking up and determining what the boundaries are going to be about a particular meeting with someone, just the anxiety of that has made me avoid it. I'm sure I could have figured out how to lead a more social lifestyle during this last year, but it was the stress of having to figure out how to negotiate all that was really hard for me. It still is. I'd like to think that this has upped my communication skills, or requires a higher level of communication than I was used to in the past, but I think it's just shown me where my communication weaknesses are. And I've always been able to be alone without being lonely, but I definitely feel lonely sometimes.
I won't bore you with the details or anything, but long story short, I was very, very sick and living in another country and had no support system. And I felt really alone until I sat next to this Serbian basketball player on a flight. And originally it was just, I wanted to sit next to the tallest, most handsome man on the plane. I don't know. It was very shallow. But then we got to talking, and he told me about how he missed his mom. This big, muscly man just telling me about how every time he left Serbia to go play basketball in Spain, he'd cry. And he'd cry every day until he came home, because he missed his mom that much. And he made me feel okay because I was very depressed at the time. Also crying every day. And up until then I had thought, wow, I'm so pathetic. But he made it seem okay. He made it seem manly. Not like that fucking matters, but... He also told me that there was a light in my eye. I don't know, that sounds dumb. Like, that I lit up when I talked about things that I liked. And he told me, kind of straight up, like, you'll get through this. I believe in you. Like, you have hope. And I don't know, it was what I needed to hear, though. I guess I could stalk him. I mean, there's probably not that many Serbian players on the Real Madrid team for basketball. He probably doesn't remember me.
So I am 23, and everyone in my family, everyone, parents, grandparents, aunt and uncles, brother, siblings, cousins, all married by 23. Married before 23. And sometimes I get in these moods where I get really freaked out because I realize that my whole life, my parents unintentionally have instilled this idea in me that kind of the most important thing is for you to find your life partner young and then live life together. And I appeared to have gone down a different road than the rest of them. And I get really freaked out and I get really lonely. And I talk to them often about how hard it is to be 23. And they're like, it's okay, and I get into these moods where I get really angry because I'm like, you guys will never be able to understand what it means to be 23 without your life partner, and how much harder that is in different ways, I'm sure. But it's hard to suddenly diverge from your whole family's shared experience and not really have anyone around who can give you advice and sympathize with what that feels like to really truly be alone in navigating my life as an individual in Portland. And I've been very fortunate to have that type of shared experience with my family, and this is one of the first things where I don't have that anymore, and it is both terrifying and lonely, and also I try and be excited about it because fear and excitement are the same feeling through different lenses.
That was really beautiful. Some of y'all wrote poetry and spoke in different languages. And I just feel, some of you I can recognize your voices, but some of you I don't know who you are, and I just feel really honored that you chose to share those things with me. And now I want to see your 7-word intimacy stories. Okay. Wine lips, sun-kissed dreams, moist Pensacola panties. Baby shoes for sale. Still new. I've heard that before. It's heartbreaking. What does this say? Oh, you hang 'em. We swang 'em. That's not 7 words. But I love you. Everything just suddenly grows so quiet. Yeah. Those intimate moments. Travel bans. No end in sight. Missing him. I hope you get to see him soon. Eyes, words spoken, unspoken, and none. Here. Intimacy, knowing yourself without looking into a mirror. I love that. Wanting to share a smile with strangers. I'm not alone. I have rats. Amika, is that you? A raw monster lives here. Please knock. How dare you write about my personal experience of living alone during a pandemic? Yeah. I don't know if you guys are feeling closer to each other. I hope that you are. I'm hearing so much that I've felt before, and also understanding new ways of feeling things that maybe I've never even felt or thought before. And I'm just really thankful for all of you. And, you know, I was thinking about, as we transition into finding joy, which is just so important, I was thinking about a moment of joy when I was alone. And like I said, especially over the summer, I was really, really, really alone in my house, and I took a lot of walks, like a lot. And I would walk the alleyways, and there was this one day when the flowers were in full bloom, and there were all these yards that had like tons of flowers. Even though I was like terrified that somebody was going to come out and accuse me of stealing. If a yard had a bunch of flowers, I would go and just pick one. And I was wearing overalls that day, and I would just tuck it into the little front pocket of my overalls. And slowly but surely, on this long walk, I would add more and more, and then I just had this like beautiful bouquet of flowers like right on my heart. And it was so joyful. And it was so lovely to just like have a moment of joy alone on a beautiful day, and to put them into a little vase and keep them right next to my bed, and like keep that joy with me for a little while. So yeah, I feel like finding joy is such an important thing, especially right now, but always. And I'm really excited to find some joy with you guys right now. And I just want to say, if you're listening and you feel like getting up and moving around like me, like, do it. It feels really good. Like, get the weird stuff out. Like, find some joy. So yeah, let's listen to some joyful, joyful noise.
I've been finding a lot of joy recently in reading. Reading for, I don't know, like 16 or so years has been this thing that I've just had to do for school or work. So I finally finished reading a novel during all of this. And I used to be that kid in middle school who had exhausted the library's catalog on like all the topics that I liked by the time 8th grade had even started. I love reading, but it's not something that I've made a lot of time for because surviving always seemed to take precedence. Even now, as I survive day after day, I'm finally beginning to practice joy. And it's less about finding it for me now, at least, and more about the commitment to myself and the people around me to capital P, practice joy. And I'm not talking about like the toxic forced positivity or some like conditioned behavior of trying to hide the challenges that I'm going through, but I mean the joy of existing here and now, as I am, and being in relation to others in their own existences here and now. I miss connection so much. I miss being in the same room as other people and actually being able to talk to them and to express to them and to laugh and to cry and to exist with them in the same space. But if this year of isolation has taught me anything, it's that missing connections with myself, that allowing others to dictate who I am or who I need to be, is antithetical to everything that I believe in, and not actually helpful to my community ecosystem as a whole. So here's to knowing that when we can all gather again, we'll be able to move so many mountains, even if those mountains are ourselves.
I lost my job in May because of COVID, obviously. And I didn't know what to do with my life. So I searched and searched. I found a job at this tiny little company that I knew nothing about. I had to start remotely, which was weird because I had never met any of the people who I was working with or for. As time went by, I slowly started to realize that it was eating away at my soul. This job, where I wasn't doing something that I enjoyed, wasn't working with people that I enjoyed working with, was constantly chastised by my boss. I felt my soul slowly pulling away. And I was in the darkest time of my life. I had a moment where I almost took myself to the hospital because I thought I was going to end it. My life, that is. And then the next morning, I woke up and I heard geese flying over my apartment building. And it reminded me of my favorite Mary Oliver poem, which is everyone's favorite Mary Oliver poem, right? The one about the wild geese finding their place in the family of things. And so I read that because it helped to calm me down. And I decided that day that I was going to quit my job. And I had a full mental breakdown, sobbed to my boss, told her I couldn't do it anymore, quit my job. It wasn't very pretty. It wasn't a glamorous, cute story of sticking it to the man. But the moment I quit, I had found peace and joy like I'd never experienced before.
I'm gonna be straight. Being a bipolar person, joy is very exciting and lovely and also kind of scary, because sometimes when I find joy, it is hard for me to distinguish when that joy is hypomania or mania, or when it is truly coming from me. And it fluctuates so aggressively, because when you're hypomanic, you feel like really intense joy. And there's also some people in my life who bring out that type of hypomania joy, that kind of like, I am willing to sacrifice anything. I'm willing to have this moment of joy to be in a lot of pain later, because it's actually not the right thing for me in terms of being a functioning human being. And that is tricky. It's really tricky. And it sucks to feel joy and to also in the background be micromanaging yourself, be psychoanalyzing yourself if your joy is real or not, or if you are you're feeding into wanting this really powerful, intense, jubilant joy that perhaps people are bringing on for you, or ideas or activities. that at the end of the day actually are going to make you really sad or make you feel really alone. And there's probably a larger story to this, but I'm already at 1 minute and 30 seconds.
Sometimes when I want to feel joyful, I just put on my favorite music or like a playlist of my favorite music, and I just dance. And I really think it's underrated how good dancing makes you feel. Just the ability to close your eyes and just feel your body move through space and just like carving the air. It's like so freeing and definitely brings so much joy, especially when you're not judging yourself, when you're just letting yourself loose. And so I really love the feeling of moving my body by myself. It's just one of the best feelings in the world.
I was at a post-wedding bonfire in the backyard with all of my closest friends, and one of whom decided he was going to put himself to sleep on the couch. And I went in and he was all snuggled with under a blanket, and I asked, did he need any more water, if he was good? And he said, "I'm ascending." And the memory of the confidence, it brings me so much joy.
I just wanted to take a moment to talk about The Godfather and how once every 6 months, or probably honestly more realistically, it's like once a year. I wish it was once every 6 months, but once a year, I block off my whole day so I can watch The Godfather. And it doesn't take the whole day, but the movie itself is like 3 hours. And every time I watch it, I'm so fucking pissed because I forgot that the last time I watched it, I promised myself that I would make cannolis and eat cannolis while I watched The Godfather. And then I never actually do. And then it's just a vicious cycle of not making cannolis, but continuously watching The Godfather. But the reason I have to block off my whole day is because after I've finished the movie, I rewind to the scene where Al Pacino is in Italy and he marries Apollonia. Literally, I rewatch the wedding scene like for the same length of time I watch The Godfather. I watch it for like a 3-hour period of time because I think that scene is just like the cutest, most romantic, beautiful scene. And like Al Pacino in that fucking movie is so hot, and it's just like, oh my god, it's so good. And like I know that nobody probably watches The Godfather for the romance, but I'm telling you, Al Pacino and Apollonia, Michael, I guess his name is in the movie, but oh my god, when they get married, they're in Italy, and he's so nice, and his skin looks so soft, and his eyes are so intense, and I'm just like, oh my god. It's just like, it is just truly, like, the horse head be damned, Al Pacino and Apollonia in Italy, like, is the best part of that movie.
Finding joy is a complete fallacy. Joy cannot be found. Joy finds you. And you accept it into yourself. You allow it to be one with you. That's finding joy. Being joy.
I really needed that. Remembering that there is just so much joy in the world. It finds us. We have to become the joy. I know somebody recently was telling me that they were trying to celebrate, even in times of mourning, this person threw a 1-year COVID anniversary party with their roommate, and it's not that they're ignoring all of the horrible things that have happened and all the pain, but maybe it's just celebrating that they got through it, that taking those moments of mourning and trying to find a little tiny piece of joy. And I just thought that was so beautiful. Ooh, it just fits in. And I just love how much your joyful moments just like brought me so much joy. Wild geese? Yeah. I love that. It's probably everyone's favorite Mary Oliver poem. It's because it's so ding dang good. Lots of bird imagery tonight. Yeah. I'm just thinking about this space. I feel a lot of intimacy and connection and joy and thankfulness and oh man. So I've been thinking about how you create joy in difficult spaces, whether it's online or, I've been thinking a lot about family and how intimacy can change between you and a family member over your life and in either direction, and how you can continue to create intimacy even when you love each other so much. Or, I don't know, it's hard. I don't know what happens when it just feels like you can't connect in the right ways, or you're like trying to, but it's like this. And so, oh boy, I decided to write my mom a letter. And I was talking to her all about these things that we've been talking about tonight, being alone and creating intimacy and finding joy and misconnection. And I asked her to write me back. And I was so scared to do this that I just asked her to do it like a couple days ago. Because this is really scary and really vulnerable. And so I had her overnight it, and because I was so nervous about it maybe not getting there, I asked her if she would record it in a voice memo just in case. And the thought was that I was going to read the letter, and then we were going to listen to her. And so I sent the voice memo over to Phil, and this morning he was like, Claire, this voice memo is like kind of long. I texted Eric, and Eric was like, I mean, does the letter feel really big? And I hadn't read it. I hadn't opened it because I was going to do it here tonight with all of you. And so I did. I opened it. I didn't read it. Don't worry. And it is, she actually numbered the pages, so it's 10 pages, front and back. And so I'm not going to read it. We are all going to listen to it together for the very first time. And I am both so thankful and so terrified that you all are here with me. But let's do it.
Dearest Claire, you are my most important connection from the time I knew you were inside my body until forever. My connection to you is physical, emotional, and spiritual. Sometimes we are psychic. Ha! It's funny but true, and sometimes we are not psychic and wonder how much our connection matters to each other. I respect your boundaries when I don't think we are as connected as we should be. If I call you and you don't have time, I'm less likely to call again until I get a clear signal that you want or need to talk. It is funny how we both do that sometimes. A mom like me always wants connection with her only child, her most precious relationship. But I understand from being a daughter that sometimes a child wants and needs separation. If you then think I am not wanting to connect, you wonder why I don't call. But it is because I don't want to feel like I'm intruding on your life. So sometimes I write you a card or letter or text to let you know I am thinking of you and love you and want very much to connect with you. It's difficult for a parent to feel held at bay or ignored by a child they love, but we parents, try to respect boundaries and be patient. Know, my dearest, that I always want to talk with you. I am so grateful that we are taking steps to discuss our different viewpoints and to hear each other. This isn't easy to do with the person you love and care for the most, who can be so different in thoughts and opinions. It's so much easier to do with a friend or acquaintance. As a child, even a grown-up child, it is hard to separate your parents' opinions from their criticism or judgment of your own. We both experience that deep desire to share our deepest thoughts and feelings with each other, to be known and accepted, and maybe sometimes to learn to see things and understand feelings and thoughts that are different, so different than the person you love, and hopefully respect. I've always wanted to hear your thoughts and opinions and feelings. A parent wants to truly know and understand who their daughter or son is. It's so hard to be vulnerable and share yourself with a parent, and vice versa, for fear of criticism or judgment or rejection. Yet I believe it's a step of trust to be able to do that. So I've tried to share my truth with you when you've asked me to. Thank you for accepting who I am, and even though some of my beliefs may be hurtful to you or unfathomable to you, I appreciate that you've never cut off a relationship with me because of how you perceive me. Relationships can be fraught with troubles and turmoils and fears and misunderstandings. But when you love someone, you must persevere in building a loving relationship and keeping at least a thread of connection between each other. And especially when the person you love is the one you gave life to and did your best, though never perfect, to nurture so she could become a lovely human being, able to live life independently and fiercely and find meaning and purpose in all of it. Raised, in quotes, to know who she is and unafraid to become all she can be, and to understand the value of loving relationships, good connection with others, and giving and receiving in both. I find immeasurable value in my relationships and perception of God, His Son and Spirit, and how infinite His love is for me and each of us, how incredible His grace is, how good all of this makes life, not perfect, but definitely so much greater than what the world and conventional wisdom and thinking of most humans offer. It is so far beyond what common education and understanding or common sense is, and unfortunately so misunderstood by most that it is difficult to share and be understood by those who don't really experience, understand, or desire it. My hope is that you will come to understand it and experience it and find joy and much more in all of it. It seems crazy, but when two people have experienced this love of God and God's love of them, they have a much deeper connection with each other, even though they've not known each other for very long. It's awesome. So that is a very important part of my truth that I share with you. And likewise, my connection with you seems transcendent too, as deep and important as anything in all of existence. Before you were born, I knew and loved you. So I believe even if we don't talk or write each day, that I will be connected with you forever. If you even broke our connection, I would still have it, although would be extremely sad and lonely for you. You asked about tender moments, holding you as an infant and gazing at you when you gazed at me, like right after you were born. You gazed so intently at me. Talking with you about death and separation when you were only 2, and you asked me if our dog Samantha would die, and then if I would, if everyone would, and I had to tell you, yes. And we cried together in the car, with you in your car seat, and me in the driver's seat, amazed at what had happened. How our conversation had changed in an instant to something so profound and heartbreaking. Claire, one day you will have to look at the stories you told Dee Dee in First Montessori. I still have them, and they were so imaginative. After we went to see Romeo and Juliet at the Atlanta Ballet, when you were just 3, you told Dee Dee the entire plot, and she wrote it into a story, and I just loved it. Plus, you fell in love with the dancer who played Tybalt. He was very cute, and would not agree to go home until you saw him. So we waited outside the backstage door into the Fox Theater until it opened, and I told someone you had to see Tybalt. He came to see you, and it was a very touching moment I'll never forget. Both of you were delighted. I've been writing memories in another journal that I will send to you when it's more complete. We had many tender moments, many fun and funny moments, and some really difficult ones too. All part of growing up and doing our best or not and living together. You went through a period where you tell me you wanted to spend more time with me. And you told Graham that too. When she told me, I said, I don't quite know what to do because I feel like, I know that we spend a lot of time together. Yes, I work, but I come home about 6 and we're together until bedtime. And I spend at least an hour in bed with you or more, reading to you or making up stories. And you never wanted me to leave. And rarely did you ever fall asleep quickly. And I got you up and ready for school, and we sang songs on the drive to school and had fun. And if you weren't with your dad on the weekend, 2 weekends a month, we were together. I wasn't out every night or away on business very much, so I really didn't know what to say. And your Graham must have been very concerned that I was neglecting you. I guess it was the hours after school and before I got home that you were lonely. Do you remember? You were a very social child who loved to talk and have fun with friends. I believe that we had a lot of fun together acting out stories from Disney like Peter Pan and the Tinkerbell scene where we had to clap and shout, I believe, to bring Tinkerbell back to life. Or The Little Mermaid, that was in your bathtub, and you'd go under the water, and then you'd break out. Or I would say, what is that under the water? Do I see? What is it? And you would break through the water and say, I'm a little mermaid. By the way, I didn't write all that in the letter, but I wanted to be sure you remembered it. But when I'd ask you, you would say, Mom, I just like to be with you. I want to be with you. But if you still feel that I was gone away too much or neglected you, I'd like to know. From my memories, I was a doting mother who indulged your desires and focused my love and attention on you because I adored you, and you always gave me great joy. I know there were a few times when I was away, a trip to Europe when you were 6, and a few days on a birding trip when you were 4. Since it was just you and me most of the time, it probably did feel like too much separation for you. I loved that you loved having friends and loved people. You would have loved to have a sister or brother, but I never could make that happen. You asked me to adopt a Chinese girl so you could have a sister. If I'd gotten married, things would probably have been different. But I remember telling you that's the hardest thing for me to do, to give you a sister. But I did give you friends and time with friends. Our relationship felt very close when you were little. I carried you much of the time or held your hand. We snuggled together and got on the floor, grass, to play together all the time. I'd carry you in a backpack when you were a baby to take you with me places. And you slept in my room for at least 2 years. Lisa, or Cece, our nanny, lived with us, so you stayed with me in my bedroom, and she had the other bedroom. When we were in bed when you were about 3, and you'd tell me stories about the Eagle Beagle, or I'd read to you, we were so close. And one night you asked me, "What's a spirit?" Can you imagine that? I did my best to explain. I must have mentioned the word spirit in a story I was telling you. When you had trouble with friends, once or twice, at first Montessori and some in junior high, I'd try to fight for you. I wanted to tell the other child's parent, but you would never let me. You were not a victim and wanted to fight your own battles. Many times as you grew older into your teens, I wish you'd shared more with me, but you didn't want to. I don't know why, but it's probably more normal than not. You probably thought I'd judge you or your friends. As a parent, I felt pretty helpless and believed I must have done something wrong that had splintered our relationship. It was hard for me. I'm sorry if I did do or say something that made you not want to be close. I wanted you to feel you could depend on me to support you or help you. But I remember withdrawing from my parents when I was a teenager and younger. I was afraid I'd disappoint my father or upset him, and my mother was dealing so much with Lisa's physical therapy and 4 kids that I wasn't as close. I felt I might disappoint her too, so I can see why you might have felt some of that with me too. Family relationships are complex. It can't always be or feel close and loving, especially if we're fractured people in some ways, which most people are. We're never wise enough to say or do just exactly the right thing. I wish that you would feel comfortable to share yourself, your thoughts, experiences, opinions, feelings, struggles, and joys with me, and want to do that. I'd like to support you and understand you and share more time together. If you want to set boundaries around sharing or how and what you want to or need from me, that's fine. Just let me know. I hope we grow closer in trusting, enjoying each other. I would love to see more of you and talk more with you. I miss you so much. But I respect your boundaries. I've told you that I realize it is not fair or beneficial for me to expect to get so much of my emotional support or need for connection or well-being from you. It's always a risk between a single parent and an only child for either of them to become needy and codependent in this way. I'm enormously proud that I somehow raised you, as I wanted to be independent and your own person. And I realized that as independent as I've been and am, I don't always want to be. I get lonely, and while I've always been able to tolerate being alone more than many people, I naturally want to be close and connected. So I will always want more connection and closeness with you, yet will be there or not, whichever you choose. As a human being, if we fight or argue a lot, or if I feel like you don't want to be close, it is likely that I'll allow that distance, but will grieve over it and might put up a few walls to avoid feeling hurt or rejected. That's human nature. But also, I will love you always and want and hope for you to be in a good place with love and support in your life and meaning and purpose. I'm so grateful for the chance to send this letter and honored that you asked me to. I will also write more in the memory journal and send that to you. I think you'll love it. I love you deeply and enjoy seeing the person you've become. I'm sorry my pen made this so messy and my handwriting. Kisses and hugs. Love always, Mom.
too, Mommy. She doesn't even know this is happening. Oh, boy. Thanks for coming on that journey with me. Talk about intimate and joy and being alone and moments of misconnection. I'm really thankful to all of you for coming and staying and trying to create this space of intimacy with me. For watching me wiggle. And for sending your stories in. It was like a really big honor, this whole experience. So thank you. And I want to especially thank everyone who's here. Andrea, thank you. And Phil and Alan and Eric, thank you. And thanks to Coho and Philip Cuomo, I really miss you. And to my sister Fitz Ryland for making that incredible projection computer 010011. I don't even know that program. And thank you to Michael Brucken for making the promotional material. And thank you to everyone who sent in voice memos. You didn't have to do that, and you did, and you were vulnerable, and I really, really appreciate it. And thank you to everyone who came here and shared this space with me. I love you all. And I hope you have a really great rest of your night and sweet dreams. I cannot wait to hug all of you when this is over. Even the ones of you I don't know.